Hello everyone, it's ASMR Duck. Quack, quack, quack. And you may notice something a little bit different today, which is I am wearing my late granddad's coat. This leather jacket is special to me because it's one of the only things that I have of my granddad left, besides my memories and genetics. And personally, I think it is a fantastic coat. It's got an asymmetrical zipper, it's super warm, and I think it looks cool. But that being said, it is old. And so what happens with leather when it gets old is it can dry out and crack. And also my granddad, he was a handyman, always working on projects with his hands, and he definitely wore this while he was working on projects because there are cuts on it and a couple tears. And a few years ago, I had a rip that was in the armpit fixed with a patch. But then last winter, I was ice skating. And, well, let's just say I'm not a very good ice skater. And at one point, I ended up throwing up my arms as I was falling and ended up ripping the same armpit. And so I think now is an appropriate time to try and repair it myself, and then also to refurbish the jacket a little bit, so mend some of those cuts, and also to condition the leather with a leather conditioner, which will help bring back the oils into the leather and make it more supple and less prone to cracking. So, without further ado, let's get to it. Quack. So, here is the jacket. I have honestly no idea how old it is, but it has been well loved, well used. As you can see, we've got frayed sleeves, little cuts, probably from using tools. The zipper is in good condition. Looking around the waist, it looks like it originally had a belt that was taken off. You can see the stitching holes. Don't worry, just had the percussion section upstairs. And then you can see the hole in the armpit that was patched. You can see the different coloured leather that have come from being well used, being a staple in someone's life. Which also is a reflection of who my grandfather was to me, and one of the big reasons why I'm actually going through this process. My grandfather taught me a lot of things that I take with me and try to embody in my daily life. And what we're going to do is put in a little shim so that the needle has something to bite into. So, it's a pretty simple process, but it takes some time and care, which is akin to one of the lessons that my grandfather really taught me, which was, if you're going to do something and you don't know how to do it, find out how to do it, which it's all about not doing things in half measures. And if you're going to do something, to try and do it to the best of your ability and see it through until the end. You know, if you leave a project at 95%, it'll always be unfinished. So, from the leather shop, I picked up a nice piece of goatskin, which is pretty similar to the texture of the jacket, but also has good qualities for what we're going to do with it, which is create a little internal, call it a brace. So I took the measurements and I'm now going to create the little rectangles. And as I think about it now, I think this is how my late grandfather would want me to repair this jacket, is by doing it myself. He was a real handyman, doing projects on his own, and I can remember this basically since I can remember anything. My family home, he came over when I was very little, and he would work with the construction crews and my father building the house where my family would live. And he was always really kind to me. And maybe to my parents' dismay, he would spoil me a little bit. There are pictures of me sitting on the front steps with him early in the morning, eating jelly babies for breakfast in my dressing gown, him in his slippers. For those of you outside the UK that don't know what jelly babies are, they're a really tasty candy, but maybe that's up for debate. I don't know. Let me know. But the jelly baby candy always has a special place in my heart, because as I would grow up, still in my younger years, and visit him, he had a work van filled to the brim with tools, and I mean filled. He had everything. And we would play this game where it was basically a treasure hunt, but somewhere in this huge van full of tools there would be a package of jelly babies, and so I could root through all of the tools and find them. It's just one of the many lovely memories that I have. So, we've now cut out the little sections of leather, and the next step is to glue them into the edge and carefully fold over the lip of the leather that has separated from the original patch. This will create something nice and strong for me to push the needle into, and so that hopefully next time I fall while ice skating, it doesn't rip. I suppose I should also combine this with learning how to skate better. But you can only have so many hobbies, right? It's, I think the adage goes, you can do anything, but you can't do everything. And so, the first patch fits. So we're going to apply some glue to the back of it, and then we're going to carefully insert it into the rip and put it into place and smooth it so that there are no air bubbles or gaps, and it's perfectly placed. I'm always super messy with the glue. Something I need to work on. But I think that's all part of the love for creation. It's the getting messy while you're doing it and just really enjoying it, trying to be present. And honestly, I feel like this is another thing that I took from my grandfather and my father, is the enjoyment from creating something out of nothing, whether that be a video or something made of leather, or it could even be something non-physical, like an experience. But taking the time, thought, to plan, envision what you want to bring into the world, and then to execute on it. Personally, I think that's a valuable thing to have. But as I mentioned before, this video was partially inspired by a request that I got in the comments, and I want to say thank you so much for all the support and ideas. They really do make a big difference on my my journey with this channel. So I thought about making a YouTube channel for a while, and I'd been listening to ASMR for several years before I started. I think one of the big reasons why I started the channel was after reflecting on my life, and there were times I felt quite lonely, times of stress and strife. And that's honestly a lot of not really knowing how to accept help. But yeah, I originally started listening to ASMR after a car accident and was having insomnia. I also used to read lengthy and bloated philosophy books. Back in the day, Plato's Republic used to bring me straight to sleep. But I enjoy it now. Maybe that's something of getting older. But anyway. So now we're adding in the second patch. doing this, I'll tell you a little story about me and my granddad. So where we lived in London, we were by a canal, and he'd taken me there so we could go look at the canal boats going through the locks and the changing of the water levels. And I was in one of those, like the red, yellow, like toy cars that you can like push with your feet. Anyway, I was using one of those, but then we were on the lock, which controls the water level, and some kids or teenagers, I'm not sure, I was pretty young at the time, they ended up nicking the car while we were on the lock, and my granddad saw this, and so he gave chase, and he had little me under one arm, and he was trying to call the police on the other, and I don't think they really understood what he meant by he was chasing his car on foot, but eventually they gave up and we got the car back, so good example of perseverance. So now I'm taking some waxed thread, measuring out the length that I'll need. Usually for myself, as a rule of thumb, I'll get about 4 lengths of it because it gets all taken up with the loops and whatnot. So now I'm using, I call it a spike, a punch. I don't know if it's an awl, but anyway, to create a hole, and then I thread the needle and thread through to create a strong and lasting bond. And it's to be honest, I've gone through quite a bit of loss lately, and so this is one of the ways I can connect with people that were important to me and values in my life that I try to uphold. I don't know who said the quote, but if you focus on the hurt, you'll continue to suffer. But if you focus on the lesson, you will continue to grow. And I think that applies quite well to dealing with the subject of loss, because it's like, I know it's big, but it can be looked at like kind of anything that you're maybe not looking forward to. And I've been thinking about this, and there are kind of like 3 points in which you can look at something. It's kind of like the anticipation, like what happens before, then your perspective while you're doing it. But then there's also the third perspective, which is looking back at it when it's all said and done. And lately I've really been focusing on how I want to look back on certain things. Because just because something was negative at the time doesn't mean that I can't look back on it and see it in a completely different light, or see it as something beautiful, or change the narrative on it. Which is what I'm trying to do with this jacket, which is reframing loss. Because it doesn't end when someone is not there anymore. Because they are with you in the lessons that they've imparted and the experiences that you've shared together. And those don't stop being beautiful, or having meaning and weight, and value. You know, it's natural to feel pain, whether it's a broken relationship or a lost opportunity. That hurt is real. And it can be like a storm that hits you hard. And it really is okay to feel that. But, and I've been super guilty of this, staying in that place of hurt can be like living in the storm forever. It keeps you stuck, and it can be hard to move forward if you're anchored in that pain. And going back to that quote, instead of being stuck in the pain, you can see the lesson in what happened. And I'm a big believer that our life is defined by the challenges that we face in it. And I mean, that doesn't mean that you should take on every challenge that comes your way, but rather to pick the challenges that give your life meaning. So whether that be striving for self-improvement or having that difficult conversation that will end up leading to you getting what you want, it can be worth it. And part of that is understanding ourselves better, recognizing the patterns of our behavior, seeing what we need to change. It's not always easy to see the lesson right away. These things often take time to sift through and make sense of things. But when we do focus on the learning, we start to grow. Think of it like this. Life is a series of experiences, both good and bad, depending on perspective. And the good ones bring us joy, the bad ones bring us lessons. And when we shift our focus from the hurt to the lesson, we start to see the opportunities for growth. We become more resilient, more understanding, and more compassionate. And it can be like lighting a candle in a dark room, and you can finally begin to see things and find your way out. And for me, this is an example of that. Because when I lost my grandfather, I didn't really engage with the hurt that came with it. I'm sure some can relate to this, but instead of you do anything rather than feel, the very natural response to experiencing loss in your life, which is sadness and a whole medley of emotions, but instead rather pushing that down, distracting yourself with whatever you can find, a little bit your phone or keeping constantly busy. So for me this process is very cathartic. Taking the time and really thinking about not the hurt, but the lessons that I learned. It makes me think about the duty we have to those we love. And it's a duty to those we love, but it's also a duty to ourselves, because you should be your biggest advocate. And I think these just aren't responsibilities. They go further than that. They are part of the essence, which makes life meaningful. So you start with the people that we love. I find that's the more simple of the two to see clearly. Like our duty to them, something that we feel deeply. It's about being there, like really being there. The good times, the tough times. Whether it just be something as simple as listening. Someone needs to talk, lending a hand when someone's struggling, celebrating achievements, and sharing in those moments, both the highs and the lows. But, and this is just as important, you've got to remember to take care of yourself too. And this isn't about being selfish, it's about self-respect. And think about it. How can you truly be there for others if you're not looking after yourself? I've always found that to fully show up for people, your cup needs to be full, or have enough in it, in a degree. Because if your cup is empty, you have nothing to give. And so our duty to ourselves means recognizing our own needs, dreams, and giving ourselves permission to pursue them. About making the most of our talents and resources, no matter how limited they might seem, but leveraging them to their full ability. And when we do this, we build a sense of resilience and fulfillment that makes us even better at supporting the people we care about. Now these two duties, the one to others and the one to ourselves, they aren't in conflict, but actually go hand in hand. When you take care of yourself, you have more energy and more strength to give others. When you are happy and fulfilled, the love and support you offer can be even more meaningful. But doing what you can with what you have. Life isn't always going to give us perfect conditions. Sometimes it's going to be tough. But that's where our resilience and creativity comes in. It's about finding joy in what we have right now, seeing the opportunities where others see obstacles, and turning challenges into something productive. It's about making the best of every situation. And for instance, making this video, and I'd love a perfectly quiet house, but I don't have that. There's traffic, and my housemates are happy upstairs and they're chatting. So Just got to do the best with what you got. It's kind of like this leather. It's not perfect anymore because it's been well loved and used over time. But by giving it a patch, we're giving it a second lease, and I'm doing the best job I can. It's just an example of being capable of doing things and finding solutions to the daily problems. That just reminded me of another story of my grandfather, just finding solutions to daily problems. He was known for finding unorthodox methods. An example of this that I'm thinking about is again, when the house was under construction, we didn't have a stove at that point. The propane hadn't been hooked up, and so we ended up using he used a blowtorch to cook the sausage rolls, which is I wouldn't call it elegant, but I'd call it more than adequate of a solution. So now we're just finishing off the stitching. Giving the final stitch several wraps so that it won't unravel. It feels good to have that done. Now we're going to move on to the repairing of the little cuts. A lot of these little nicks, they didn't take all the leather off, they just kind of lifted it in certain parts. So what I'm doing is I'm inserting a little bit of glue underneath the lifted area, spreading it around, and then I'm smoothing it down. Gradually working it out from the back of the cut to the lip, bit by bit, so there's no ruffles or air pockets, so that the edges line up nicely. One thing I really like about having the leatherworking hobby is I get to achieve tangible results with my hands. I like to think of myself as a conceptual thinker too, but getting to actively see the progress in reality as a direct correlation of the effort that I put in is a really good feeling. So if you have any ideas on things that I should do next with leather, please let me know. One thing I've been meaning to do is replace the leather handles on an old steamer trunk that I bought off of Facebook Marketplace. And I polished all the rust out of the metal, and I varnished the wood, oiled the metal, but it has 2 leather handles that are broken and that I still have yet to replace. So I could do that, but just let me know. Because honestly, one of my favourite things about having this channel is getting to talk to you guys in the community. So now, we're going to start to condition the leather. Which involves taking the solution, putting it onto a rag or a sponge, and then just gently rubbing it into the surface. And for me, this was one of the most satisfying parts of the process, because I could feel it soaking into the leather and like bringing back its luster. So I'm really looking forward to getting to wear this again. I wouldn't call it like a winter jacket, but it's really good for fall and spring. Wear it with some boots and jeans. But if there's any takeaway from this video, besides hopefully being relaxed, maybe learning something new, it's to love those who deserve it, and to do what you can with what you are given. Because it's certainly not the easiest road, but when we go back and think to that third perspective, on how will we look back on things when they've gone, it can be a nice motivator for when we don't feel like doing things, or if we're not enjoying something at the time, because when we look back, maybe we'll see things differently, because thoughts and feelings change. And just because we feel one way now doesn't mean that we're stuck feeling that way forever. And that one of the easiest things to do to change how we feel is to change what we do. I hope that makes sense. And anyway, I hope that you found this either entertaining or reassuring or insightful. As I do turn these videos out towards the lens of the world, I make them and I think about what I would have wanted or needed at a different stage of my life, or even like me going through this process, what I need now, because we are always shifting, always learning. And personally for myself, what I'm learning at the moment is how to take better care of myself and to feel deeply the very real thoughts, feelings, and ideas that I have. And then trying to act on those, thinking about what memories do I want to look back on when I'm old and grey, when there is someone younger than me to give my jacket to. So, here we are, and I'm really happy with the progress that we made with this. It already feels less kind of brittle, and it's more flexible, and it's really nice to have the patch and the seams fixed on the arm. So now I can go out in public and there's something of my granddad's that I'll be able to keep for a little while longer, and now that I know more about leather, I'm hopefully going to be able to keep taking care of it and maintaining it for years to come. So, that's all I have for today. I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, leave a like, subscribe, and also send me a comment of maybe something else you'd like to watch. This video was inspired by a comment. So, take care. See you soon. And bye for now.